Good morning, Kelly. How's
Hello,
everybody doing?
Tony.
We're doing good. Your column taking to task your town of Wildwood. Are your neighbors throwing eggs at your house, or are you still allowed to?
Not yet. I have survived. I have yet to have eggs at the house or be teepeed, but I've got a couple of trees in the city right away that need some trimming. I have a feeling I may have to wait in line a little bit for that.
They must put up with you in Wildwood. But your story was one that sort of explained how we are working against our own best interests.
Right, and what I did is I got to two different things of economic development going on, one in Wildwood and one in the city. Of course, everybody who's been reading my column and listening to your station is following the soccer stadium and the transit votes that are going to take place probably, if a judge says yes, on April 4th in the city. And the biggest problem with those proposals is that under no circumstances does it make sense for city residents to bear all of the brunt of such huge regional tax investments, while nobody in the county is paying for those particular investments. That's just not how almost every other city in the country does it. It's not good planning. Most cities in the country have regional taxing authorities that invest in transit or invest in stadium or invest in the arts or the zoo or the museums and all of that. And generally speaking, we just don't do that in St. Louis. So I drew attention between the fact that my city where I live in Wildwood has just hired a new economic development director, and I'm sure he's doing a fine job. I know, looking through the minutes of the city council meetings, he's been very busy. He's been traveling a lot and doing what it is that they're paying him to do. But the problem is you have a situation where people who live where I live aren't paying for those massive regional investments that will improve our home values and improve the entire region's opportunity to succeed. And yet people who live other places are helping to pay for our economic development director in Wildwood, because the way we fund a lot of city services in St. Louis County with 90 different municipalities is through this sales tax pool. So when you go shopping at any sort of regional center somewhere in St. Louis County, your money is helping to fund an economic development director whose job it is to make sure that businesses leave where you live and come where I live. And it just gets to the crux of what our problem is in St. Louis. We are constantly robbing from Peter to pay Paul. We are never working for Peter and Paul together to raise the economic pie of the entire region. And that fundamentally gets to, why our economy just doesn't grow as well as it should for a city where we are.
The story's been made, the arguments have been made, and then you hear a story about how Chesterfield, passes a law that says we are not going to join the city in any way, shape, or form, and they, draw a line in the sand. It sounds good, it makes sense when you talk to people, and ultimately when you ask them, they say, I don't want to join the city, or I don't want the city joining the county. So I don't know how you get out of this hyper-local philosophy to help the entire region.
I think ultimately it's going to take some serious regional leadership. There is going to have to be a mayor, a county executive, a governor, somebody with some serious gravitas who stands up and says, St. Louis is the economic engine of the state of Missouri. St. Louis needs to succeed, and it is not going to succeed with 90 municipalities, with the city and the county constantly fighting and never working, or rarely working together for the same economic goals. It just doesn't make sense. Any of the business people that I talk to who travel or who came here from other places, they all see it so obviously. And so that's the one place where I would push back a little bit. Yes, there are mayors and aldermen and who live where I live, who live in Chesterfield, who are pushing back against some of this regionalization. And yet the Missouri Municipal League, to their credit, is actually pushing toward city reentry into St. Louis County. So the organization that actually speaks for most of the municipalities in this region is talking about at least one form of unification, that being the city of St. Louis getting rid of its structure as a county and re-entering the county as its 91st municipality. A lot of people believe that's a step in the right direction. It's not the be-all, end-all, but it begins the process of more unity, because if that happens, all of the voters in the city are now county voters as well. The county executive all of a sudden is the executive for the city as well. So every time there's one of these economic development projects in which the city and the county are fighting, that takes that away, because any great economic development that goes on in the city helps the county as well the second that move takes place. So I think there is more, despite Chesterfield's stubbornness, and I believe Wildwood passed a similar resolution. There are other cities on board realizing that that we need to get closer to some form of unity where we're all rowing the same direction.
Tony, the powers that be say that's, if it's going to happen, the city is going to reacquire, or the county is going to reacquire the city. So what does that take? Is that a vote of the county residents and the city residents, the state residents? How does that work?
I think there are multiple ways to get there, and I think somebody smarter than me is going to have to ultimately come up with that. And ultimately, I think you're going to have a few different votes. I think you're going to have the city make some moves on its own. I mean, for instance, on April 4th, the city is going to vote on getting rid of its Recorder of Deeds office. There's right. a petition that's going to be on the ballot there. So I think you may continue to see the slow drip of little things happening to move us towards regionalism. Ultimately, it was state action in a constitutional convention that broke the city and the county up in 1875, and ultimately, I think it is going to have to be state action that brings us together again, probably in the form of a ballot issue that we all vote on.
Tony Messenger, Post-Dispatch, contributor here. Have a good day, Tony.
You too. Talk to you later.
All right, 8:27.